couple stats.
Perfect.
Because I really want people to know that this is not getting addressed for multiple reasons. And I went to the National Center for Victims of Crime to look at these stats, but just for girls, 1 in 5 girls are a victim of sexual abuse. And when I read that, I just, it's a very painful number to hear. There's a lot of girls that have gone through that. Children are most vulnerable between the ages of 7 and 13, which makes a lot of sense. I know we were talking a little bit about that earlier, why that is, but just that's an age where girls have not yet really found their voice for most girls, and they don't know how to stand up for themselves. And another stat on this website that I read is 3 out of 4 are sexually abused by someone that they know and trust. And that to me says so much about why it's not talked about why it's shoved under the carpet, so to speak. And so that's what I just wanted to share those stats because I think that's why this topic needs to be talked about. It's not being talked about enough. And I can't tell you how many people I've heard just gradually or casually say, oh yeah, that happened to me when I was a kid too.
And you're like, wait, what?
What?
Yeah.
This happened to you as a child? Did you deal with it? So that's why I really wanted to talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, those stats should open up some eyes. I mean, if you're, I don't know. I don't know how to preference this other than just get into you kind of brought an outline because we want to stay on topic and move through this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll just let you go. Sorry. Yeah. I'm like trying to fill gaps right here, but I got nothing else to say. I just think we dive.
Let's dive in. Dive in. So I want to show a picture. I brought this picture of me when I was 12 and a half years old. So I know the first thing you're going to notice are the bangs. So shout out to my bangs in the 80s. But I brought this picture because when I look at this picture, I see a very hurt little girl. Who didn't know what was going on. My life went from completely normal to completely abnormal in a matter of a night. And I didn't know what to do about it, so I did nothing. And just to kind of get into it, basically what happened, and I don't know what my older brother was going through, but something. And he would wait till everyone was asleep at night. And he would come into my room, and when he thought I was sleeping, when he thought everybody in the house was sleeping, he would sneak into my bedroom at night, and he would touch me all over my body. And I just remember thinking, oh, it probably won't happen again. And then it happened again. And I remember thinking, okay, it probably won't happen again. And I pretended I was asleep because I didn't know what else to do. I mean, I can still remember being that child and just not knowing what to do. And it's so crazy now because now here I am as a woman and I have a voice. But I didn't when I was 12.
Yeah.
I didn't have a voice. And I didn't know how to speak up, and so I didn't. And the more it happened, the more it kept happening until that was just my life. And I would go to bed at night and I would pray that he wouldn't come in. But I never knew when he was coming in. And that went on for a long time until one day he decided to tell my parents that he was doing it because he wanted to go on a mission. And here's what I want to say about my parents. They didn't know how to handle it. And back then it was not talked about. Like, I don't even think it's talked about enough now, but it wasn't talked about at all then. And my parents just didn't know how to handle it. And so the best way they knew how to do it, and I don't fault them for this. My parents have both actually passed away a long time ago. And I am so grateful that I was able to talk to them after I healed from all of this. And we had some beautiful conversations. And they were so sorry about how they handled it. They just didn't know any better. And so I love and honor my parents for not knowing. I don't even know if I could say I could have done it better back in the 80s, but they did the only thing they knew how to do, which was, we're going to forget this ever happened so we can move on with our lives. And so I remember by this point, I was about 13. They sat me down on the couch and they said, Aimee, your brother has repented and God's forgiven him. And so you need to forgive him. And we're going to pretend this never happened. And I said, okay.
And that was it.
And that was it.
I think that we talk about it on here a lot because I criticize my father a lot. But it's like you said, I think that they did the best thing that they knew how. And it's almost scary that maybe parents should be more versed in all of this stuff. You just hope it's something you never have to deal with.
They absolutely should now. And I can't even imagine as a parent what that would feel like to have one child coming to you and saying, I'm doing this to your other child, and know how to do the right thing for both of those children.
Right.
And so I know that they were doing the best that they could back then, but now is an opportunity. If any parents are listening to this that know that a child has gone through this or anything, I mean, you just they need help. They need help. They need to talk about it. And I do want to talk about kind of the ripple effect of what that did in my life for sure.
Anything else you want to touch on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So kind of going back to that stat that I shared, that 3 out of 4 things with abuse happens with someone that they trust. What's so damaging about that is it creates so much confusion for a young child. In fact, I have a very interesting story. I remember being about 13 or 14, so maybe a year or two after this had happened, and I had a really good friend of mine who had a brother who I thought was cute. And I remember saying to her, your brother is so cute. And she's like, oh, that's so gross. It was confusing to me that she didn't think her brother was cute.
Yeah.
And that is so damaging because I had been so deeply affected by that abuse, and I had no idea. I had no idea that I was the child that something was wrong. And I thought it was weird that she didn't think her own sibling was attractive. And that is so painful to look back on because that abuse had such a ripple effect in my life in the sense that I had no boundaries. All my boundaries had been broken at the age of 12. And this is a bit of a sensitive topic, but I do want to talk about it because it's so important that anyone that has gone through sexual abuse, and it's so relative to the age that it happens. So I do want to talk about this a bit sensitive, but for me, I was 12 years old. I was just starting puberty. My period was about to start. My body was starting to feel things. And so to have me feel sexual feelings with my brother was so incredibly damaging to me. And one of the most painful parts of this whole thing was I was so confused sexually. It's like my body had suddenly been aroused by my brother. No one talked to me about it. So no one talked to me about sex. No one talked to me about what all these things felt and meant. No one talked to me about how wrong it was that I felt that with my brother. And then I would go to church and I would hear things at church that made me feel like I was this horrible person.
Yeah, there's self-blame all over the place.
So much self-blame. I blamed myself for all of it. I blamed myself for why was he doing it? Did I do something? Did I cause this? What caused this? What did I do? And so there was so much blame. There was so much self-blame because when you're being sexually abused by someone, you protect them over yourself. And then what does that create? What pattern in your life does that create? It creates a pattern of always protecting someone else over yourself, which is exactly what I did for 20 years.
Yeah, an abuser or not.